Ryan Ham here, and what you see arrayed in front of you is a group of stainless, nickel, and I believe one chrome-plated firearm. And they are not all the subject of this video. The subject of this video is the Rossi Princess here. I have laid them out here just as illustrative purposes. From left to right, we have the North American Arms Mini Revolver. The Rossi Princess. This is a Model 13. The Princess moniker was never actually used by the company Rossi. This is a Smith & Wesson top brake. This is a Taurus Model 94. Another Smith & Wesson. This is a Model 10, nickel plated. And of course the big guy over here is a Ruger Super Redhawk Alaskan. Now, I'm going to go ahead and switch the video now that you've got a better idea of the size comparison overall. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video for a second, and we'll just focus on the Rossi at this point. And we're back with a closer view. Again, the Rossi Model 13 Princess. This is a small 22 long rifle caliber revolver, and we'll show you that it has been cleared and empty. It has a 7-shot cylinder, blued trigger, blued hammer. The ejector star is blued, but the rest of the gun is nickel plated. And the gun is made out of an alloy that is described as Zamak, Z-A-M-A-K. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. It's basically a zinc alloy with aluminum, magnesium, copper, probably some other trace metals. The intent was to make a metal that was castable, and because it's castable, you could cast the frame rather than machining it. And in theory, that gave you a cheaper gun to produce. And I think they did produce a cheaper gun in more than one way, but we'll get into that in a minute. So you could tell that it's small in relation to all the other guns that I had laid out, most notably the North American Arms. If you set them side by side, much smaller, but it only has a 5-round cylinder, which is 2 less than the 7 rounds of the Rossi. Very good appearance. It feels cheap, but it looks decent. I mean, it looks like a good, nice, smooth, even, shiny coat of nickel. But the feel of the gun is kind of, how shall we say, that the springs are all overpowered, so it's very hard to pull the hammer back. It's very hard to pull the trigger. From a reliability standpoint, I know a lot of manufacturers overpower their 22 springs, and that allows them to shoot ammo more reliably, but it also, you're not as accurate with it, and it's just a pain to operate a gun that's got overpowered screws. The Rossi is a copy of the Smith & Wesson Ladysmith, specifically the 3rd model Smith & Wesson Ladysmith, externally. So it looks like the same gun on the outside. When you get into the inside, it's changed a lot. They've added a rebounding firing pin, and that's a safety feature. That means you can load all 7 rounds and not have to worry about the gun going off. They've also incorporated coil springs instead of Smith & Wesson's original, which are flat springs or leaf springs. And arguably those are improvements, and I consider them improvements, and very much so. In fact, most manufacturers have been getting away from flat springs and leaf springs and going towards coil springs. So anywhere where you can do that, it's going to lower the price. Your springs tend to be better if they're coil springs, more consistent, more reliable. They last longer. If they break, they're easier to make and replace. So back to the Rossi. Very small gun, and I am going to demonstrate how small in a minute. Comparing the cylinder sizes, the diameter of the cylinder, to the other firearms that I had laid out. it should be obvious. First of all, let me demonstrate the rebounding hammer. So if you pull back on the trigger, pull back on the hammer, you can see the firing pin, rebounding firing pin, I mean, not hammer. If you could see, the firing pin protrudes, and then when you release the trigger, it pulls back, and that is a safety feature. It means that the firing pin does not rest on the rim of a case, which is a very unsafe condition. It also allows the cylinder to rotate if the cylinder doesn't, if it has a firing pin down, the cylinder won't rotate, and that's always a bad situation. We don't like to see that. You have to pull on this little plunger in the front every time in order to move the cylinder into position. Once you get used to it, it's not bad. If you see there's scallops on the, or these striations, lines on the flutes on the cylinder, you notice a lot of the early Rossis have that, and some of the early Taurus related company, some of the early Tauruses have that as well. It's kind of cheap looking if you're used to seeing regular flutes, but you know, it's stylish. You can see there's the firing pin down there, and there's also the transfer bar down inside of there that transfers the impact of the hammer to the firing pin, and you can see it protruding there, and then withdraws it. Double action pull is very heavy and very gritty. I'm going to go ahead and dry fire it. It is my gun. I will dry fire occasionally. I know a lot of people say, oh no, don't dry fire 22s. Yeah, if you do an excessive amount of dry firing, it's a bad thing, but I'm going to do it for demonstration purposes once here. So here we go. I'm going to pull. Very, very rickety. The cylinder does lock up. It's pretty tight, but everything worked. Very, very rough. You can feel every step of the process. Very heavy trigger pull. So it doesn't instill confidence. It doesn't feel good. Some of the features that are considered advantageous on Smith & Wessons these days, the pinned barrel, and it doesn't have recessed cylinders. That would be nice. The Taurus has, get the Taurus out here. The Taurus does have recessed cylinders, so that's a nice feature on a 22 especially. You get less blowback, less of the debris coming out of the side of the cylinder when it fires. Other than that, it can make it a little more difficult to extract. If you have a problem, there's not as much room to get under the rim, especially if you want to extract one fire case at a time. If you don't want to use the ejector star and you only want to extract one fire case at a time, it can make it difficult. Alright, so size-wise, let's compare. Turn my thing on, zero it, change it to inches first. I'll do inches and millimeters. So the diameter of this cylinder is almost exactly 1 inch. In fact, I think within tolerances that would be exactly 1 inch, which translates into about 25.5 millimeters. So 1 inch, 25.5 millimeters, and so that's the Rossi. Let's look at the other guns in succession so you get an idea. The cylinder on the North American Arms, and I'm going to go ahead and clear this for you because I know people worry about that. I don't, because I cleared all the guns before the video, but you know, it does make you nervous staring down the YouTube at a at a gun that you don't know has been cleared. I can understand that, and just for safety's sake, we're gonna make sure everybody doesn't have anything to worry about. Okay, so the cylinder on this is 0.845 inches, and the millimeter equivalent would be 21.46 millimeters. So quite a bit smaller, but 2 less rounds. Let's look at the 38 Smith & Wesson that I have here. I've already cleared it off frame here. So this is the Smith & Wesson. It's a caliber 38 Smith & Wesson. Don't get that confused with 38 Special. Now this cylinder is, let's get it at the right spot so I actually get an accurate reading. Okay, 33 millimeters or 1.296, so almost 1.3 inches. And that is about as small as you can make a 38 caliber cylinder. This is for the low pressure 38 Smith & Wesson round, not 38 special. I've got a 38 special over here that I'll measure in a minute, but let me get the 9-shot Taurus out of the way. Again, I've already shown you that that was clear. I'll show you again. So the 9-shot Taurus, starting with inches, is, and try and get it in the right spot. Here, let's do it this way. Okay, so 1.345, and in millimeters, we have 33.89, so almost 33.9 millimeters. So that is a 5-shot 38 caliber diameter based on the Model 85 Taurus. This is a Model 94, and you see how much larger that is. So we've got the 6-shot 38 special Model 10 here, which is a typical K-frame. Most of them have identical diameters, but we are coming in at, let's do inches first, we are coming in at 1.45 roughly, and in millimeters we were talking 36.4 millimeters. Okay, one more. We'll look at the giant, comparatively, Ruger Super Redhawk Alaskan. You can see it's clear. Start out with inches again. Well, I've got to open that up a lot. And 1.78 inches. 1.78, 1.78 roughly. And in millimeters, we're looking at 45.2 millimeters roughly. So the differences are clear in the diameter, but with the exception of the Bearcat, which is a 6-shot cylinder, the Ruger Bearcat, there is a huge gap between a 38 special cylinder and a 38 special size cylinder, a 5-shot 38 special size cylinder, and a 5-shot 22 caliber cylinder. The difference in terms of the number of 22 chambers you can put in it is double. 10 shots versus 5 shots. So there's a huge jump that is only partially filled by and ironically, I'm sorry, this is a 9-shot cylinder, but the Smith & Wesson does have a 10-shot cylinder in the same size as the 38s. So with a 9-shot cylinder, I believe that's true. You can go ahead and call me out on that if it's not. So from 5 to 9, the jump there would be nice if manufacturers would have a, interestingly enough, a 7-shot to go right in between. Okay, sorry the battery died again. Battery gods do not like me making gun videos. The 7-shot would be nice as a in-between size between the 5-shot and the 9-shot. Now, Ruger makes an 8-shot, but that's really a big enough cylinder to be a 9-shot. They just choose to use 8. For a while there, manufacturers were taking cylinders that could have fit a lot more cartridges and putting less cartridges in them for whatever reason. The ejector star machining was easier, I guess, and it's just really silly to have a cylinder like Smith & Wesson did that could take 9 or 10 cartridges, 22 caliber cartridges, and they only machine it to hold 6. I know why they did it, but it still seems kind of rotten to the consumer who would like to have more cartridges to shoot. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video or move on. I've done a range session. I'll show you the range session, and when we get back, I'll go ahead and wrap up. very impressed with the Rossi Princess. No real concerns. There's kind of a hitch in the trigger. The trigger is not the greatest in the world. But look at that accuracy. 7 shots in such a tiny package. It does shoot high, but overall, I'm very happy with it. It's the Rossi Princess. Okay, we're back from the range session. As you can tell, surprising results at the range. I left out a few of the hang-ups that I had where I wasn't manipulating the trigger properly. I wasn't, I wasn't releasing it completely. I was pulling it almost all the way back and letting it go. I've left those out, the ones that I videotaped just for the sake of brevity. But yeah, I wasn't 100% in operating the gun. It's an unfamiliar gun to me. That was the first time I had it out at the range, and like anything else, there was a learning curve to it. The 2-inch barrel, this is a 3-inch barrel. The 2-inch barrel version had a different designation. It was a Model 25. You don't hear those designations used very much in the United States. That generally they will call it the Princess, even though I don't believe Rossi called it the Princess. It is capable of firing 22 short, long, or long rifle, or anything else that fits within that range. Full power ammunition I would avoid, and that's mostly an extractor thing. Just shoot target ammunition if you do have one through it, or if you can get a hold of them. The shorts or the longs, it'll be a little more pleasant to shoot. If you intend to use this gun for self-defense, if it's the only option that you have, then by all means shoot whatever you'd like, but ensure you take it out to the range and shoot a cylinder or two through it to make sure it's reliable. Sometimes the higher pressure rounds will be sticky and they won't let the cylinder turn, so make sure that your gun, your particular gun, will function with that before you go and use it. The claim is the weight is 12 ounces. I haven't checked that. They claim the finish is nickel, and it does have that yellow appearance of nickel if you put it next to stainless steel. And it's I know that the Smith & Wessons are nickel plated, and it does have that yellowish, the nickel plating look to it. 2-inch or 3-inch barrel, floating firing pin we've mentioned, and of course 7 shots we've mentioned. Those are the high points for Rossi. Imported by a company called Bennett Arms into the United States for a short time, and then Firearms International Corporation in Washington, D.C., the big importer at the time, also imported them. Rossi is a company that was founded in South America, in Brazil, by an Italian immigrant. Ironically, it's a Brazilian company or country, which it's a Portuguese-speaking country, and yet you have an Italian that comes into the country and starts up a manufacturing concern. In 1889 is when they founded it. It's currently, I think, rolled into the same group that has Taurus. They make a lot of guns, and they import a lot of guns still into the United States. And the modern guns are of decent value. You get spotty value, or spotty workmanship over the years for the various Rossi imports. You get some that are really nice, and you get some that are kind of marginal. This, I think, fits somewhere in the middle. The same rough finish and rough action of a lot of Rossis. I do like the glossy look to it. This is in pretty good condition. I've seen some that were pretty beat up that I would not want to shoot. But not as nice as some of the more modern Rossis that are made on, I'm assuming, computer numeric controlled devices. In summary, I would like, as a call to action, I would like somebody to produce a 7-shot revolver of minimal dimensions. Now, I can get almost 2 fingers on the gun, but I can almost pull the trigger guard better than I can pull the trigger itself. And when I'm at the end of the trigger pull, my fingers almost cramping up. It's so difficult to put any power on it at that point. And again, I could cock the I could cock the front of the cylinder almost, so the hammer itself is a good bit back. I would prefer grips that were more understanding of that. I'd prefer larger grips. Now, South Americans who designed this were basically copying the grips that were on the original Lady Smith, the designed for ladies or people with smaller hands. Obviously, the moniker Lady Smith should give you a clue as to who they designed it for. So Rossi was just copying a Smith & Wesson gun that was already designed and improving it. So that's what you get. In summary, let's make one like this. I would love to see it. It would be a good selling gun, I believe, in 7-shot. You can also have a version in 32 caliber, perhaps 32 automatic, that had a 5-round cylinder that I think would work in the same cylinder size and would actually be a viable self-defense arm that has a width that's, again, we saw the width earlier. A 1-inch width is about the width of a lot of smaller guns, semi-automatic guns with a similar capacity, even though you've got with the magazine-fed guns, you've got more you've got more of a diameter. You can get 32 and 380 guns that are narrower than this. But for the reliability, now not necessarily this gun, but modern revolvers can be made more reliable than this revolver made in the 60s. I believe that they would have a good selling firearm, and that's all I'm going to say. If you get to see one, they're great. Read up on it. You can watch this video. And I'll link it in the description. There's an excellent write-up, which I got a lot of my information online, and it's by a guy named Ed Buffalo. And Ed did a pretty good job of researching it. He realized there wasn't a whole lot of information out there. Here's a shout out to Ed to say go on his website, called the Unblinking Eye, and it's unblinkingeye.com. And then he has a section on guns there. There's a lot on photography there. It's a good website overall. Really impressed with the quality of his write-ups, and they're all free. He's got good pictures. He's got good research. He has excellent, an excellent ability to tell the story of the gun. So here's enough for the plug there. Now, if you've liked this video, I encourage you to like, favorite, subscribe, share, comment. Ask me questions. I know a lot more about this gun than I'm leading on in the video. I'm trying to keep the video to a reasonable level. I hope you enjoyed the shooting. I hope you enjoyed the pictures. I'll move it around a little bit here and give you views that you might not have gotten before, and give you an idea of what the markings are. Yeah, it's coming out pretty good. I'll put my hand behind there so it has an easier time focusing. Now there are different markings out there. Ed's article has a good description on the different markings that there are out there. Give you a little better idea of how the plunger moves. You can see there's a little pin that goes down inside of the front of the ejector rod, and by doing that it'll free it up to move. You can see that pin coming through there and where it goes on the front of the cylinder, and get a little better view of there you go, a little hand that comes up there. You see I don't know what that's called. Darn it, I'm having a blank. There you go. I hope you enjoyed. Again, like, favorite, subscribe, share, comment, and there might be videos on more of these little cameo guns coming up. And might, I say might, there will. This is not the same North American Arms Mini revolver, the Black Widow that I had in another video. I have two. I've got this one and I've got the Black Widow, so I'll shoot this in another video. There you are. Enjoy. Goodbye.